Anyway, let me get this started. I'll share this little presentation, takes like 10 minutes tops for me to go through, and then I'm available for any questions that anybody has to go over. So, can y'all see my little presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you. So my name's Randy Davis. I'm the housing analyst with El Paso County in the Economic Development Office. And we do these technical assistance webinars twice a year. So this is my second one. So hopefully I do better than the last one. Just an overview of the Housing Trust Fund is going to be the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we'll talk about the actual application, which is due on November 1st by 5 p.m. Then I'll give us some tips and tricks, and then we can do the Q&A part. So a little general information, what is the Housing Trust Fund? So the Housing Trust Fund is administered by the El Paso County Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority was started 30 years ago. We're going to have our 30th anniversary here in a couple weeks. Hopefully y'all got the invitation. If not, I can send it out. But it was started 30 years ago in order to use bond proceeds from single-family mortgages in order to help with developments. So the housing authority can make loans because the county and the state cannot. So they started the housing authority to do that. And their goal is to promote suitable living environments for everybody. The Housing Trust Fund is revolving. It is not an infinite pool of money. It's not like HUD gives us money every year. That is the pool of money that we have had. We got a little bit of infusion from COVID. They gave us, I think it was 2 million more during COVID, but that's it. For 30 years, we had that initial bond proceeds and then the 2 million, and that is it. So has to be revolving. We have to get that money back to help more projects. And again, the application process, November 1st is our next deadline, but we also do a May 1st deadline as well. And it's pretty competitive. So our Housing Trust Fund is different from the national one. It's very, very flexible. So flexible project types, we're focusing right now on affordable multifamily rental units. So if you're building a complex, we want to hear about that. They also have done projects like initial homeownership. They worked on homelessness, special needs housing, and housing rehab. There are possibilities still, so if you're interested in putting an application, go right ahead. But we also have that CDBG funding here in our office that prioritizes those kinds of projects. So just be aware that in our office, we might push those kind of projects more towards CDBG so we can keep the multifamily rental stuff for the Housing Trust Fund. The flexibility also means flexible usage. So when it comes to using that Housing Trust Fund award that you get, the loan, you can use it for anything. It doesn't matter to us at all. And there's no final reporting requirements, you know, that you used it specifically like you had said you were going to use it or anything like that. You could use it for whatever you need to. And typically that's the gap financing. And flexible funding terms as well. So usually our loans are anywhere from 200,000 up to 500,000. Sometimes they've been a little bit more, usually not less, but I'm sure that's a possibility as well if you don't need 200,000. Interest rates are flexible as well, usually between 2 and 3%. And that's however you can base it in your numbers, however you can make it work. It is up to you to tell us how you need that funding term to look. And then we always prefer the amortized repayment. So 30 years is typical, of course, but some people have come at us for 18 years, or maybe they want to take it out to 40 years. Again, it's however you can make your numbers work. Our board focuses on the applications, of course. They get to see all of them. They're going to be looking at the project location. We would like to see things out in the rural El Paso County area if possible, but a lot of our projects are in the city of Colorado Springs. So that doesn't matter really. They're going to look at it, of course. They might look at one project across the road from another project and compare the two. Of course, that could always happen. So they're going to look at that location. They're going to look at your project timeline. So our board does not like to fund things that are closing over a year out. They don't want to tie up their money for something that is so far out. They want things, projects that are closing soon and will be under construction within a year. So watch that timeline. Income targeting, they like to help the low to moderate income families. I hear missing middle thrown out a lot these days, so they like the missing middle as well. Unit count and mix, of course, they like to help the whole range. So we've seen studio apartments for youth or seniors, and we've seen 3-bedroom units for the bigger families. So they like to see the unit count and mix on your application. They want to see that you have a completed financial stack. So they want to know where the other money is coming from for this project, because obviously their 500,000 isn't going to get the thing done. They want to see where the rest of the money is coming from, and they want to see that you've put thought into it and maybe made some applications, maybe have some approvals. So be sure to show that on the application. They want to see if you have any zoning issues. So they even have me check the El Paso County Assessor's website to see what kind of zoning is going on in that area. They want to see if there's going to be any problems, because again, they don't want to tie up the money if you're going to have a zoning issue that takes you, 18 months to get through. So they'll look at that as well. And the last two kind of go together. They want to see the benefits beyond the housing and if there's any partnerships or collaborations. So if you're working with a nonprofit to provide services wherever you're building, then that would be awesome. They like to see those kinds of things as well. And it kind of stretches everybody's assets a little further. Our housing trust fund application timeline. So again, I said applications are due November 1st by 5 p.m. You can find those on our website. We'll take a look at one here in a little bit. It looks familiar. It's based off of the LIHTC application. November 8th, we will have an El Paso County Housing Authority board meeting. They're going to go over your initial applications, and they will decide if they want to see presentations from anybody. After that point, sometime mid-November, usually the same day actually, I kind of like this part of my job, we'll let you know if they want to see your presentation so you can get it put together. December 6th is the next meeting after that. Oh no, December 6th is when I need your materials. So a week before the presentation, I need to have your stuff so that we can share it with the board members. They get an initial review of it. And then the meeting is December 13th. So that is when you will come, hopefully, in person to present, or we do have a virtual option as well. And then by the end of December, we'll let you know if your loan was approved or not. Couple other notes there. Excuse me. Before closing, the closing documents are prepared by our attorney, QTAC Rock, and signed by the El Paso County Housing Authority Board Chair. And then at closing, I deliver a check, cashier's check to the title company. Our board does not believe in wire transfers, so we would like to deliver a check at closing, and usually that isn't a problem. So if your loan is approved, we are going to give you a commitment letter that will come by the end of December. The commitment letter details the information, the project information that you had in your application, tells the unit counts that we're expecting, the AMI levels that we're expecting you to serve. Also gives the loan terms, the interest rate, and the amortization that you requested in your application. It's going off of what you requested. And the conditions of participation. So conditions of participation, we got that little box there over on the right-hand side. We want to make sure, and these are the things that get done before the closing. Usually we have a closing meeting virtually every week up until closing. So we want to know that you have sufficient funding to complete the project, that all the other funding came through for you. Completion of satisfactory review of the value of the property. We want to see an appraisal, of course, by closing. Review of the due diligence items, execution of our loan documents, payment of all the expenses. So for Housing Trust Fund, one of the requirements is that you pay for the expenses associated with that loan. So we'll want to make sure that gets taken care of at closing. And then receipts of the resolution. So our board has to sign the resolution and it goes out after that. So those are going to be conditions of the participation. When you get that commitment letter, we require you to accept it, usually within 2 weeks, maybe is up to a month for that. And an email is fine. Just respond back saying you accept as it's written. And then that commitment letter will expire within 12 months. So if you can't get the project out of the ground, you can't get to closing within 12 months, you'll have to come back to the Housing Authority Board. And you'll have to come back for any changes. So if, let's say, you get this development going and you decide you're going to do 5 3-bedroom units instead of the 8 that you had projected earlier, you have to come back to the board for those kind of changes. So I bet you're asking yourself if you're ready to apply. What we're looking for with a ready application is you have plans to obtain site control. If you don't already own the property, you have plans to get a hold of it. They would like to see a phase 1 environmental study, not 100% necessary for that, but at least plans to get one. A market study, of course, so that you know that your development will be needed wherever you're planning to build it. Preliminary development plans and pro formas. Like I said, they want to see where the funding is coming from. That's going to be in the pro forma. And if applicable, if you're doing LIHTC or PAB or something like that, if you've got a letter of intent or inducement resolution or something like that, they want to see those things as well. Again, it shows that your project is further along and they would probably want to fund those kind of things. So let's take a look at the application. There's the link for it, and everybody, I'll send that out as well. I was playing with an application here and just wanted to show you a few tips and tricks. So like I said, it's based off the LIHTC application. The first tab is instructions. So if you need help with something, then we get into your information. So pretty easy to fill out. Again, they're going to be looking at that closing date. That's really important. How long that place is going to be affordable for. Of course, what you're asking for, how much housing trust fund loan you're asking for, and then the terms. In this example, 2% interest in 40 years. That's all for you to fill in. When the amortization is going to happen, so it won't let me show you what the options are there, but I'm sure it works in the off the website. When you would like your commitment date to expire, in this example, I'm saying that we're going to close by December 10th, which probably wouldn't work in this case. I'd say January of next year. But then we want the commitment letter a little further out than that because, you know, on these kind of projects, there's all kinds of delays up until closing. So we want the commitment letter to go out a little further than that. And then, of course, what lien position this loan is going to be in. So take a look at your title work and all the other funding that goes into the project. The Housing Authority Board would always like to be in second place, if not first, if at all possible. And then this application can also be used for PAB requests. So we have the private activity bond cap here in our office as well. So if you're requesting PAB, you can use the same application. Next, we get into the summary of the project. So things to point out here, we just talked about these things like, do you have control of the property? The zoning, are there any zoning issues? What kind of AMIs are you looking to serve? Are there any other programs that you're working with? And are there any services that you're going to provide there? And then what's the unit breakdown going to look like? And then, of course, if there's any ADA accessibility, that's also important to know. Down here, it gets into your organization. So they want a brief overview of your organization. So what you've done, your experience in this area. Then it says right here, according to the market study, your organization is conducted. So they want to see that you've actually looked into a market study for your project. And that is about it for the first tab. Under the budget, they would like this to be as accurate as possible. These numbers total to the right automatically, so only fill out the yellow boxes. It says right there, fill in the yellow cells, which carries over to the income and expense sheet. And make sure you fill out, they want to know what kinds of units and the percentages you're going to serve. And it also flows over to expenses over here when you're running the program. What are those going to look like? Financing is what kind of loans you're, not loans, what other funding you're putting into the project. So in this example, we have a first mortgage. We haven't applied for it yet. It's going to be conventional, 2.65 mil. The interest rate is 7% and on and on and on. They want to know that kind of information that you're thinking about it. Down here is the El Paso County Housing Authority information. So of course, you have got to fill that section out. They want to know what you're asking for, the interest rate, the term, and in this example, I gave 40 years for that. And then the payment. They want to know how much you'll be paying every year for that. And then, of course, there's the other kinds of funding that you could have in a property, the different LIHTC applications you can put in, the different grants and loans, and if you have any deferred developer fees, they like to know that kind of stuff as well. Over on the Performa, I believe this one's a 15-year, just like the LIHTC. Yep, 15 years. They want to see a Performa, and you'll notice that line item right there. They want to see that you're intending to pay back the El Paso County Housing Authority loan. So that's one of the line items there. And then sources and uses, they just want to make sure that you're committed to these kind of things, that you've, obviously that one will say applied. Sorry about that. Then you got the other different kinds of funding that are going into the project, and they want to know where you're at in that process. If you have it, if you've applied for it, if you're planning to apply for it, and all of that. So pretty easy application. Like I said, based on that LIHTC one, we know you don't want to fill out 50 million applications, so we tried to make it easier. And then more tips and tricks, give as much information as possible, provide any documentation you have. I love to see the pictures, the slideshows, all the performas, any studies that you've done, marketing for your programs. We love to see it all. PowerPoints are not required, but they are very, very helpful. Have a financial stack sorted out as best you can. They like to see that information. And then if you have any questions, please ask. So that is the end of my presentation. Like I said, it was really fast. We can go through it pretty quick.